Uncle Liu murmured for a while, then put on his clothes and went out. But he had just reached the door. The scene outside instantly made his scalp tingle. It turned out that the sound was coming from their own kitchen. At that moment, a figure was standing in front of the stove. That figure is too familiar to him. It was my mother, who had already been dead for 2 days. At this moment, holding a bayazi in one hand, gobbled it down ravenously, Uncle Liu had a fierce expression. What is going on? Uncle Liu hasn't been back for a while. Uncle Liu's daughter-in-law also walked out behind. As I clearly saw the scene before me, it was quite a surprise. You look at me and I'll look at you. I'll take a look at you. I can't figure out what's going on. But the old lady is eating. Has it come back to life? After a long while, the two finally reacted, ran quickly to the kitchen. No matter what. It's good that the old lady is back. Rushed to the door. Uncle Liu's words got stuck in his throat. I stopped in my tracks, too afraid to step forward. Mother, how are you? In the end, it was Aunt Liu who spoke first. She said she was hungry. Let Uncle Liu cook for her. Uncle Liu felt a surge of excitement in his heart. Quickly made a few dishes with my wife, watching my old mother devour her food ravenously. Yet it turned red with anger. Uncle Liu carefully examined his old mother. At this moment, she had a rosy complexion and her breath was even. Even the appetite has increased. It seems that they really have come back to life. But Uncle Liu had doubts in his heart. If you come back later, tomorrow will be the burial. What on earth is going on? The old lady pulled up vegetables and ate them all. Finally, it has calmed down. Then he began to recount his bizarre experience to Uncle Liu. She says she is sleeping. Suddenly, I was locked up with an iron chain, walking towards the darkened area. The person who locked her up was tall and thin. Can't see the appearance clearly, although she was completely confused. But I can only follow along. I don't know how long I've been walking. A bullock cart appeared ahead. There are actually 2 old men in the car. Soon she was arranged to get on the car. What a coincidence. There is an old man on the ox cart whom she still recognizes. It was the old veterinarian from the neighboring village. No one said a word the entire time. Just keep walking. I don't know how long we've been walking. The ox cart suddenly came to a stop. Those 2 people were whispering that they had caught the wrong person. They also said it would be hard to explain when we go back. Before she could react, suddenly that person placed a hand on her shoulder. Then he swung it hard. Just toss her far away. Those 2 people didn't care about her either. The ox cart quickly disappeared into the thick fog. The old lady looked fierce. Just going to sleep by myself. At this moment, Zhao Shui has caused trouble. Suddenly, my head felt heavy, and then I woke up. At that moment, she realized. The veterinarian is lying on the wooden board. He stood up and looked at his tablet. She immediately understood. The feeling is that I was taken away and then brought back. The old lady spoke up to this point. Took another big bite of the steamed bun. Unexpectedly, I found myself chuckling darkly. The feeling of a life after this conclusion. Anyone would be happy to have it. The couple looked at the old woman's appearance. Unintentionally exchanged a glance. This matter is too strange. But you say you don't believe it. This old woman is now sitting right in front of me, perfectly fine. Soon, this matter spread throughout the nearby villages. The people in room Yanai started to inquire. It all matches what Aunt Liu said. The old veterinarian from the neighboring village indeed passed away a couple of days ago. And don't rush, someone really died. An elderly lady with the same name and surname as the old woman. In a moment, people are kissing one after another. Everyone says this matter is quite strange. Moreover, Uncle Liu also discovered, since the last time my mother came back, it started to become strange. Although the body is stronger than before, but it always hides during the day and comes out at night. Often stroll up the mountain late at night. Uncle Liu found it strange. Where would an old lady go out alone at night? Sometimes Uncle Leo would also go over to take a look, but nothing unusual was found. And so more than 2 years passed. That night, Uncle Leo secretly followed the old lady up the mountain. But this time, the old lady urged him to go along. This is when Uncle Leo finally understood. It turns out the old lady always knew. Uncle Leo also felt guilty, mumbling in his mouth, "I'm just worried something will happen to the old lady." However, what the old lady said next, Uncle Leo quickly picked it up after being convinced. The old lady said she was leaving. They have come to pick her up, and we have to leave tonight. Uncle Leo experienced such a thing once. I know I won't deceive him. Suddenly my heart felt tight and anxious. This time, it seems we're saying goodbye for good. The two of them quietly returned home. The old lady is right. That night, after falling asleep, the old lady has left. This time I wore the beast's skin myself, leaving with a smile still on their lips. Very peaceful. The old lady always said that life and death are predestined. Just focus on living well in the present. But no one knows. What did the old lady go up the mountain for? On the day of the funeral, many people from nearby villages came to watch. Everyone was amazed by the old lady's experiences. I believe everyone knows what a wind chime is, right? But this thing can't just be hung up casually. It feels very strange. Is it good or bad? Something big is going to happen. Today's story takes place several years ago, at my grandmother's house. I have several beautiful cousins. Little girl, I just love doing these flashy things. One of the cousins, Zio Fang. All day long, my mind is filled with clever ideas. Feeling bored, I made a wind chime out of a soda can. You wouldn't believe this little thing actually looks quite unique. The two little girls are increasingly endearing. Another cousin, Zio Lai, couldn't wait to pick it up, hanging on the old locust tree in the yard. A gust of wind blew in. A pleasant ringing sound echoed. It sounds like your mood has improved a lot. Grandma shook her head upon seeing it. You two silly girls. This thing can't just be hung up casually. It's quite strange to say. Grandma is usually gentle and kind. However, this matter is quite serious. But I won't ask her what it's really about. She didn't say anything either. They don't understand any of the little rules of being girls. Grandma said a couple of words and then went to work. I guess they got busy and forgot later on. The two cousins exchanged glances. It's all over. Anyway, Grandma could never really be angry with them. That's it. The wind chime hung on the tree. Until that night. Strange things started to happen. It's fortunate that the two little girls are sleeping together. The consequences would be unbearable. Zio Lai's door closed with a thought. I don't even know how long I slept. Zio Lai was awakened by a faint sound. Zio Lai looked up. Zio Fang walked awkwardly with their head down, slowly got up from the bed, neither turning on the light nor making a sound. It looks a bit strange. But Zio Lai didn't think much about it. Thought she was going to the bathroom. Turned over and fell asleep again. But just as I was about to fall asleep, dazed and confused, Zio Lai heard Zio Fang's footsteps. It was heard from inside the house to outside. Listen more carefully. Zio Fang seems to be wandering around the yard. Zio Lai found it strange. How did I end up in the yard instead of the bathroom? Could it be that I was sleepwalking? Zio Lai suddenly woke up after sleeping for a while. Curiosity also arose. Quickly got up and pulled open the window to look outside. At first glance, it startled her. At that moment, several people were standing in the yard. It looks very strange. It's all blurry and hard to see clearly. A few people stand in a circle, gathered around the old locust tree. Lifting my head, I gazed at the wind chime. It seems that they noticed Zio Lai. Several figures suddenly turned their heads. Looked straight at me. A very strange smile appeared on his face. This action frightened Zio Lai, causing her to break out in a cold sweat. Suddenly it emerged. Yet, despite being so scared that her legs went numb, still cannot forget to find my sister. If Xiao Fang encounters this group of people, you never know what might happen. But when she took a closer look, suddenly everything felt wrong. Xiao Fang was standing in the middle of the crowd, like others, staring blankly upwards. A strange smile also hung at the corner of his mouth. Xiao Lai saw here. How could I not understand what has happened? Grandma is always a bit mysterious in her usual ways. She knew that Xiao Fang must have been possessed. No time to think. Xiao Lai shouted at the top of her lungs, shouting Xiao Fang's name. Heard the commotion over here. Those people also turned their heads at the same time. The facial expression also became exceptionally ferocious. It seems like they are very angry, but fortunately, those people didn't do anything in the end. Soon, it slowly disappeared without a trace. After those people completely disappeared, Xiao Fang is also easily weakened, collapsed onto the table in front. Looking around, there was nothing unusual. Xiao Lai mustered her courage and came to the courtyard, called all the adults in the house to get up. Grandma understood the general situation at a glance, pressed hard on Xiao Fang's philtrum. Not long after, Xiao Fang hummed a few times. Just turn around again. But I have to ask her what's going on. I don't remember either, only hear the sound of the wind chimes, and fell into a deep sleep. I can't really explain what's wrong with me. I feel weak and achy all over, feeling down. Grandma's heart is as clear as a mirror. He cast a reproachful glance at the two girls and said, "That locust tree is also called ghost wood, loves to provoke negativity. And the wind chime in the countryside is said to have the same ability to invite evil. The wandering spirits will gather around upon hearing this." These two things placed together. It's strange if it doesn't happen. The two little girls were regretting it immensely at this moment. If I had known it would be like this, I should have listened to Grandma. You really shouldn't ignore the advice of the elders. The loss is right in front of us. The locust tree actually has many sayings in folk culture. There are good things and bad things. The locust tree is often referred to as the ghost among trees. It's what the old folks often refer to as the ghost tree. Another saying is that you shouldn't plant locust trees behind the house, because the area behind the house is always dark. Planting locust trees in front of the house is indeed excellent. It symbolizes good fortune and longevity. Of course, these are all folk legends. Its authenticity is particularly evident. Everyone can just take a look. A couple visits an ancient village together. I didn't expect to encounter a strange old woman. Things that happened during that time. It has become a lifelong psychological shadow for me. This incident happened a few years ago. I, along with Lai Ergu and his girlfriend Xiao Fang, we arrived at an ancient village for tourism. At that time, I found something online that had not been developed, but the ancient village road still retains its original appearance. The village is quite remote. After several transfers, we finally arrived there. As soon as I arrived here, I felt an ancient atmosphere embracing me. It seems quite different from those ancient towns in the past. It truly catches the eye. We booked a guest house. Find that household according to the address online. It doesn't seem particularly special. An elderly woman with a slow gait came over to greet us. They said the rooms have already been prepared for us. I don't know how she figured it out. Lai Ergu and Xiao Fang were arranged to be together. I moved into another room. We are all set, just getting ready to go out and have some fun, experience the local customs and culture here. We took a short break, just started wandering around the village. It's been a tiring journey. I found a nondescript hole-in-the-wall eatery, just ready to grab a bite and head back to rest. Make plans for the next day. Although the restaurant doesn't look great, the dishes that can be made are really quite good. The taste is surprisingly good. The boss lady looks pretty good too. As they talked, they became more familiar with each other. asked about our residence. I just told her the house number where we live. She immediately changed her expression upon hearing that. Her face was filled with terror. The smell in my mouth is unpleasant. How did you end up living there? We all noticed that the boss lady's expression was off. I hurriedly asked her if there was something wrong with that house. The boss lady hesitated for a moment, still talking about that families matter. We were all feeling uneasy after listening. It is said that the old lady who originally lived there had a son and a daughter-in-law. This young couple always argues over trivial matters. Once upon a time there was a day. The couple didn't know what was wrong. Unable to think clearly, they hanged themselves in the room. The old lady couldn't accept the blow from a white-haired person to a black-haired one. There were issues with the spirit as well, although the boss's words made us uneasy. But on second thought, what she said might not be regrettable. The old woman looks quite normal. It is very likely that this woman doesn't want us to stay at the old lady's house, and moved into her house. Thinking this way makes us feel much more at ease. Hurry up and settle the bill before heading straight back to the place of residence. After a long day, everyone was very tired. As soon as I flipped the book, I fell into a deep sleep on the bed. I could sleep for a little while. A sharp pain suddenly struck my stomach. In this situation, it feels like I'm about to have diarrhea. I grabbed some paper and hurried to the bathroom. The hand-see in the village made my legs go numb from squatting. After a bowel movement, my stomach finally feels a bit better. I weakly walked back. Passing by a room, the voices in the room caught my attention. It turns out it's the old woman talking to her son. My heart suddenly began to race. Didn't they say her son was already dead? A strong curiosity compelled me to stop. Hiding by the window, I looked inside the room. There was no one else in the room except for the old lady. She clasped her hands together in front of a black and white photo on the table. Jelly Gulu is mumbling something incomprehensible. Upon closer inspection, on the table there seemed to be a memorial portrait. It looks like a young couple. It should be the old woman's deceased son and daughter-in-law. In front of the photo, there were two small figures made of straw. The old woman finished speaking and grabbed the two small figurines on the table. A sinister smile appeared on his face. I felt a shiver run down my scalp. I don't know what this old lady is up to. Suddenly moved a stool over. Climbed up shakily. Two ropes were hung on the beam of the roof. They each tied two dead knots. Picked up the scarecrow from the table. He carefully hung it on the noose. It felt like there were truly two people hanging and swaying. This old lady looks strange. It seems the restaurant owner wasn't lying after all. This old lady's impulsive behavior indicates there is indeed a problem with her mental state. I find it boring. Sleepily walked back to the room, thinking that this old woman is quite pitiful. Talk to Lai Ergu tomorrow about staying a few more days. Take care of his family's business. As I walked, I started to feel something was off. A sense of foreboding suddenly arose in my heart. I don't know if it's out of instinct. I have a feeling this matter is definitely not that simple. My heart is beating very fast. The footsteps quickly ran towards the room where Lai Ergu and the others lived. Without thinking, I burst open the door. As soon as I entered the room, I was completely dumbfounded. Just as I thought, two pairs of feet swaying in the air suddenly appeared before my eyes. But the one hanging is not someone else. It was Lai Ergu and his girlfriend Xiaofang. I quickly regained my composure. They lowered the two people from the noose. At that moment, I felt completely at a loss, but still liked the scenes I saw on TV. They started performing CPR on them. Fortunately, I discovered the opportunity. Before long, both of them were rescued. Rescued Lai Ergu and Xiaofang. I immediately dialed the emergency number. This is intentional murder. His thoughts are incredibly vicious. Except for us. There may be other victims. The police quickly took the old woman away. The old woman kept mumbling nonsense. What else can I do to help her son find a substitute? It's quite strange to say the least. After investigation, it has been confirmed. It was indeed Lai Ergu and Xiao Fang who hanged themselves. The old woman had a mental illness. There was no punishment received. We naturally dared not linger here any longer. I took a night bus back home. I asked Lai Ergu about what happened that night in the car. Lai Ergu recalled, "Just tell me something incredibly shocking." They both returned to the room, washed up for a bit, and then went to sleep. I never imagined that I would fall asleep so soon. I just feel like someone has entered the room. The two of them were so scared that they sat up suddenly from the bed. In front of me stood a man and a woman. A sound of laughter escaped from her lips. The two people lost consciousness shortly after. The body uncontrollably tied a noose on the beam. He drilled himself in. But the couple felt very excited. A smug smile, watching them slowly breathe their last. Lai Ergu finished speaking, and cold sweat had soaked his entire body. I was scared to think what would have happened if I hadn't arrived in time to save them. I guess this time we are forever separated, although this happened several years ago. But every time I think about it, I still find it very frightening. As for what insidious methods that old woman used, let Lai Ergu and the others hang themselves. There is no way to know. I'm sure everyone has heard of the Ben Ming Nian, or zodiac year of one's birth. When it comes to the year of one's zodiac sign, one might associate it with bad luck, unlucky, eerie words like these. It's strange to say, in the year of my 12th birthday, which is also my zodiac year, something truly terrifying happened. I remember shortly after my 12th birthday, my mom brought over a red paper bag for me to wear. Look at my puzzled face. She explained to me that the year of one's zodiac sign is not peaceful. Let me wear it close to me. I have always been quite obedient. So nothing was said. Put it on and go find the little friends to play. I was quite playful as a child. A few people often gathered together to play paper, wrestling, rolling iron ring, playing marbles and such. On that day, we were too engrossed in playing, so that half of my butt was exposed. Unaware of it all, my mom said I should wear red underwear during my zodiac year. I'd also obediently put it on. I didn't expect it to ultimately become their laughing stock. As I raised my butt, just then the most mischievous Lai Ergu spotted it. Everyone knows Lai Ergu. Since childhood, I've always been full of mischief. Look at me like this. He yanked my pants down in one go. I still haven't processed what happened. I heard them laughing heartily. Only girls wear red underwear. I feel a bit feminine. But I finally understood. My face suddenly flushed bright red, loudly rebutting. Not at all. My mom said this year isn't going well for me. You must wear red underwear to get past it. But I told them. They seemed to not understand either. This is a little friend who lives next door to me, mysteriously told Lai Ergu. My mom also gave me a talisman. At that time, the children had nothing to do all day. I'm quite curious about strange and unusual things, especially these mysterious matters. Lai Ergu, who has always been very curious, no exception. Just now, they were leading the mockery against me, now shamelessly posting again. Would you like to see my talisman? The other little friends saw him like this. Also, Suo came over. It was indeed embarrassing in front of them just now. For the sake of my reputation, I just want to take this opportunity to show off a bit. So I went along with it half-heartedly. Take off the amulet. They have never seen it before. Eyes filled with curiosity. I can see they have never seen the world. It feels like my heart is blowing up with pride. This talisman can not only cure zombies, even vengeful spirits and ghosts are easy to handle. I was just blabbering endlessly, but they believed it to be true. With a face full of admiration for me, my vanity was greatly satisfied. Feeling happy inside, I watched it sway. The speaker has no intention, but the listener is attentive. Lai Ergu sees how amazing I am at blowing. Suddenly I remembered my amulet. using all one's skills and resources. You must take it from my hands. Later, he actually agreed to give away his three beloved comic books. Bet against me as the gambler. Actually, I'm also drooling over that comic. I borrowed from him many times. He wouldn't even lend it to me. This time, I don't know what got into me. Such a huge investment. But the final result made me very unhappy. Not only did the comic not win, also threw in the amulet. I sighed. There's no way around it. A bet must be honored. Lost the amulet. I sneaked back home. After returning home, I continued to hide, trying not to make eye contact with them, afraid that a careless mistake would reveal the truth. Fortunately, my family didn't find out. My amulet is missing. Thus, several days passed peacefully. The terrifying thing still happened. I remember that day was a Sunday. We went back to the familiar field where we usually roasted sweet potatoes. Everyone is still as happy as ever. Lai Ergu, who usually jumps around the happiest, but a bit absent-minded. A pair of eyes stared directly at the edge of the forest. Mumbling mysteriously, he discovered a coffin. Those years were popular for zombie movies. We felt a bit scared as soon as we heard the coffin. But more than that, I want to see. After all, I've never seen the real thing. We hurriedly asked him where he had seen that coffin. Run in the direction he pointed. It really is a shabby thin coffin. It seems that the mudslide was caused by the heavy rain from the past couple of days. The coffin is dry and the eyes are wide open. A strong stench rushed straight to my brain through my nose. Let's be straightforwardly disgusting. Everyone covered their mouths and noses. At this moment, we also began to feel a bit scared. I want to stay far away from the coffin, but Lai Ergu remained still. It seems like I've been struck by blood. A pair of eyes fixed intently on the dark, gaping crack. We kept persuading. He also set up a network gate. Just as we were about to escape, Lai Ergu suddenly turned around. Advise him not to rebel. What if it really turns out like it does on TV? If there are really zombies, we're doomed. But Lai Ergu insisted on watching. Whoever says anything doesn't matter. Just go ahead and lift whichever coffin lid. Maybe it's because more than half is still buried in the ground. It's quite difficult to pull out. He used all his tricks. Not even a bit moved. Lion Wan asked me to come over and help. I was already feeling a bit unwell inside. Seeing him insist on this, I turned and left with another friend. Lai Ergu noticed that I was ignoring him. You're threatening me again with my underwear. They say I am a cowardly and timid wimp. If you don't help him, he is about to tell the other classmates. And they added fuel to the fire, saying I was lying. They say our whole family are liars. When I was young, I didn't understand what reverse psychology was, even though I was fuming inside. But still, I steeled my heart and approached. Most of the coffin is still buried in the ground. Many barrels were also placed on the coffin lid. We struggled for half a day, but still couldn't get it open. We were just messing around, completely unaware of the thin wooden board at that moment. It has already cracked into several pieces from the middle. Lai Ergu didn't know what was going on. In a fit of impatience, they began to ramble on, the part in his hand. He forcibly pulled me out. Lai Ergu suddenly lost his balance and fell backward, but he still tightly clutched that piece of wood. But fortunately, there are no major issues. Complaining that the coffin board isn't sturdy, while putting that coffin board, threw it aside casually, looking at the sharp tip. I felt a vague sense of unease. A coffin has also appeared. The opening that allows us to climb inside. You could even vaguely see the body in the coffin. A chill ran through my heart. But Lai Ergu seemed completely oblivious. I must go in and find out. I haven't come to my senses yet. In the blink of an eye, he had already slipped inside. Hurry up and catch up with me. I'm a bit hesitant. He started to get angry again. They say I'm timid and afraid of death or just a sissy. I could only follow along angrily. I don't know how I was so brave back then. How much is that face worth? Because I just caught a glimpse of something. So I am very afraid of seeing anything again. Unexpected things. Let's first ask what Lai Ergu, who has already crawled into the coffin, saw. The light in the coffin is very dim. Lai Ergu struck a match. This coffin is just enough for the two of us. But we don't even have the space to turn around. I can feel that there is a dead person right in front of me, urging Lai Ergu to hurry and light the match. Maybe he's a bit nervous too. It took half a day to strike a match. What a hassle. Finally struck a match. After seeing the firelight, we felt a little more relaxed in our hearts. But the next second, I was so scared that cold sweat broke out all over my body. Inside the coffin lay a female corpse. That posture is quite twisted, fierce and menacing. Dark eye sockets. It seems to be staring directly at us. Lai Ergu's matchstick suddenly fell down, following where the match fell. We saw between the woman's legs. Turns out there's still something hidden. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a dead infant, has already turned into a dried corpse. The skin clings dryly to the body. We were already so scared that we lost our senses. Seeing this scene again now, even if that talisman is truly effective, we can't dare to stay here any longer. We almost squeezed out of the coffin lid's hole at the same time. Neither of them dared to show off any more. Fled from that coffin like a wailing ghost. Look at us like this. The other two friends were also scared. Hastily asked what happened to us. We scrambled and crawled over to it. Linger Gu carefully described the scene inside the coffin to them. I was breathing heavily on one side. This might be the most terrifying scene I've ever seen in my life. The sweet potatoes are ready. The little friend brought it over and called us to eat. At this time, the sweet potato had already been roasted until it was all wrinkled, just like the mummified body we saw earlier. Adding to that, the foul smell emanating from his own body. Thinking back to the dry corpse I just saw, neither of us is in the mood to eat any roasted sweet potatoes. They both ran to the side and vomited everything out. They were all puzzled. In the end, we all returned defeated. After returning home, I still felt very nauseous. Just lie to the adults and say I ate too many roasted sweet potatoes. I didn't eat dinner either. Went to bed early to sleep. I thought that waking up would make this matter go away. I didn't expect it to be in the middle of the night. I unexpectedly developed a high fever. The whole person was still in a daze while having a very terrifying dream. I don't know if I'm dreaming or awake. I became aware and opened my eyes, but then realized they were not in bed, but was locked inside a wooden cabinet. This enclosed feeling is like lying in a coffin during the day. Suddenly, a woman's frantic voice came from beside me. You scared me quite a bit. A woman was frantically banging on the cabinet with her hands and feet, shouting loudly, "Let me out!" It seems there is still a deep abyss. Suddenly, my perspective shifted back outside. I saw a group of villagers with gloomy expressions. They were chattering about something. What can I say about this crazy woman and the wild child in her belly from their fragmented words? I took a wild guess. This woman has always had some mental issues. Then ran to another village. Defiled by a man. She is pregnant with a child whose father is unknown. But why wait until she is about to give birth? Just executed her. It's to create an illusion of a difficult delivery for outsiders. His thoughts are extremely malicious. I felt a chill in my heart. What I see now should be the scene before her death, as the last clod of earth fell. At this moment, the coffin has been completely buried. The sound of women's cries is almost inaudible outside. At that moment, the woman seems to be in labor, screaming in pain while holding their stomach. But the oxygen in the coffin is becoming increasingly scarce, adding to the turmoil she just caused. It seems like I'm running out of strength now. And he was originally a madman. How would I know anything about having a baby? At this moment, she could only endure the pain alone in the darkness. I couldn't do anything on the side. Gradually, she fell silent. Suddenly, I vaguely heard my mom calling my name. I wander slowly and quietly, feeling quite upset inside. Grandma also noticed something was off with me. Hastily came over to ask about my condition. It's strange to say. Grandma, who usually has blurry vision, at that moment he noticed at a glance. The amulet around my neck is missing. I felt extremely uncomfortable at that time. My head feels heavy and fuzzy, so there was no need to be clever. He told them about last night's events in bits and pieces. Grandma turned around and went out. I don't know what she did. It felt like no time had passed when Grandma returned from outside. My mom and I both thought. She went to the clinic to see the doctor. I didn't expect she was going to lie Ergu's house. I got my talisman back. My mom brought the clothes over for me to put on again. Then I continued to eat, feeling the lingering drowsiness after the cold. Fell into a deep sleep. I slept straight through until the next morning. The next morning, I feel that my body is basically fine. Jang Da is eating heartily. Suddenly, a little friend burst in, all aflame with excitement. Tell me that Lai Ergu is dead. I was stunned as soon as I heard it. Broke out in a cold sweat. It was just fine yesterday. Just like that, it's gone. I hurriedly ran out after him. I want to see what exactly is going on. A friend told me Lai Ergu fell from a tree and died. We arrived at the place where Lai Ergu had the incident. The place is already surrounded by people. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. Isn't this the place where Lai Ergu and I were digging a coffin the day before yesterday? Once we passed through the crowd, seeing Lai Ergu's parents, crying loudly while lying on his corpse. I felt a pang of sadness in my heart. His death was truly tragic, and directly took his life. That piece he broke, the coffin lid tossed aside. At that moment I had an ominous premonition. It can't be like this sharp fragment, right under the tree where he was collecting bird eggs. When I fell from the tree, it just happened to fall right on top. After collecting Lai Ergu's body, the villagers also buried the bodies of the mother and child. Buried it again. Grandma said the amulet was specially made for me. Even if Lai Ergu puts it on, things will still go wrong. This incident always stays fresh in my memory. Every time I return home after that, seeing that mother and child grave sends a chill down my spine. There used to be a saying among the people. Jiangxia devises strategies to establish order in the world. The serpent man's iron mouth seals the future. This snake spirit can actually be compared to Jiangxia. It seems their abilities are definitely impressive. So what exactly does the snake man do? It was around the year 2015. I returned to my hometown because of some matters. I'm not afraid to tell you, even if you laugh at me. They are demolishing our area. I also became a second-generation demolisher. At that time, everyone in the village was busy moving, but a particularly strange thing happened. It was probably around dusk. The sound of metal clanging echoed through the village. Not long after, a person stood still at my front door. The door was not closed. The person knocked on the door a few times. They didn't come in directly either. Instead, he politely stood at the door, called my dad's name. At that moment, we were all a bit surprised. But my dad still won. The man is around 50 or 60 years old, wearing that old-fashioned gown, wearing round sunglasses, wearing a crossbody bag, holding an old piece of cloth in hand. What do you call the knife money when the other person opens their mouth? Moreover, the price is not low. I want 400 yuan. My dad first laughed, but then I slapped my forehead. It seems I remembered something. Then he took out 400 yuan from his pocket, gave it to the old man. That person is quite enthusiastic. The old man took the money. I smiled at my dad, then turned and left. They said they still need to go to the next place. Then the tinkling sound of metal striking began again. I see my dad standing at the door." Still lost in thought, he walked over and didn't tell me what it was about. Back in the courtyard, I chatted with my mom a bit excitedly. My mom seemed quite surprised to hear this. The volume noticeably increased by several degrees. I thought to myself, could it be that this old couple has fallen victim to some new type of scam? What kind of knife could be worth $400? I haven't seen any high-end knives at home either. I was about to educate them on fraud prevention knowledge. But my mom hurriedly interrupted me, a face full of awe. "This can't be said lightly. They say this old man is a zombie butcher. 20 years ago, someone came to our village. This matter is a bit eerie to talk about. The events took place in 1995. It was the year I was born. One evening, a sound of metal clanging echoed through the village. This sound, when heard in that era, a vendor came to the village to sell goods. Before long, this sound attracted many people. In the middle of the crowd stood an old man wearing a long coat and sunglasses. The box next to me is filled with kitchen knives. In front of the frame stood a wooden sign with several large characters written on it. Corpse vegetable knife. Just talk, no selling. 400 yuan each. At that time, the villagers had a good opinion of the profession of corpse handler. Many people have indeed one. My dad is just a... The old man started writing them down one by one in his little notebook. Actually, everyone could get a free kitchen knife at that time. There is more curiosity about the prophetic abilities of the corpse blade man. As everyone rushed to grab the corpse knife, a discordant voice emerged from the crowd. Everyone turned to look. It is Fujishu and Lai Wengyuo from the village. He was a sent-down youth sent to the countryside years ago, because a home was settled in the village. So I stayed. I have a very close relationship with my dad. Seeing Lai Jaishu looking like she was about to cause a scene, my dad was holding a brand new kitchen knife. He squeezed through the crowd and said a few words to him. Lai Fu believes he is the only educated person in the village. It's like exposing this deceptive trick as soon as it's established. I pushed through the crowd and squatted down in front of the corpse slasher. Let's talk about what can happen in these 3 years. Take advantage of the rain. I shot onto the stone slab. This statement clearly carries a provocative tone. As he spoke, several villagers joined in the uproar. We just need to bring that corpse slicing man down. However, the corpse knife wielder remained calm. As soon as the notebook was put away, he opened his mouth and said, "One fall, 2 hen dead in a second." In this world, calamities occur every century. The buildings rise towering into the sky. The village wasteland lies desolate and barren. 20 years before and after, the medicine will work perfectly without any cost. And there was one during these 3 years. The prophecy of the sharpshooter is like a 4-line rhyme. The tone is straightforward. Everyone can understand. But this is a matter of encountering situations. It's Han Lao again, and that thing. It's truly chilling. Moreover, during these 3 years, it will definitely happen. However, this allowed Lai Jishu to catch a reason. The voice immediately went up, saying that he went to grab 10 kitchen knives. 20 years ago, I owed $4,000. That is a huge amount of money. Just then, his outstretched hand. But he was stopped by the knife thrower. Forget it. I can't shoot for you. Unable to retrieve the money. Once these words were spoken, the air was suddenly filled with the smell of gunpowder. The sharpshooter has no confidence in his own prophecy. This still suggests that Lai Jaishu does not have long to live. However, there is no conclusion from the court and the officials. Lai Jaishu was also persuaded to leave by the villagers. After he left, the knife throwers saw that no one was coming to throw knives anymore. Then they packed up their things and left the village. Everyone didn't take it too seriously. Little did he know the prophecies he would speak of in the future. It has all come true. The earliest one was indeed nearly 3 years ago, in 1998, There was a sudden heavy rain upstream. The reservoir has burst, releasing a great flood. It is said that at that time, Lai's father returned from the fields to eat, crossing the river with a hoe on my shoulder. Suddenly, a rumbling sound echoed in my ears. As soon as I turned my head, I saw the upstream river. The great flood swept down. He was right in the middle of the river. There was no time to dodge at all, watching helplessly as the flood rushes towards us. This flood is a major disaster. But in our village, only Lai Jaishu died. This inevitably reminds everyone of why didn't the knife thrower set a vegetable knife for him at that time? The battle that followed took place in 2003. Also received the yin condition in 2007 and 2011. The village has experienced two severe cold spells. The crops are all harvested. Now in 2015, the country's development is getting better and better. The old houses in the village have all been demolished and new buildings have risen. Exactly 20 years have passed. The shirt of the shooter also fell into despair. There's nothing supernatural about this matter. But this knife thrower is someone I truly saw that year. Looking back now, it still feels too mysterious and eerie. There is a saying in our hometown: if there is something wrong with the child at home, just bring a bowl of water, place a needle on top. If the needle sinks down, there is no problem. If the needle comes up, it means we're likely in big trouble. This event happened a long time ago. The family next door to us. He has a 5-year-old boy at home. His name is Lai Erwa. Very likable in appearance, especially an old man Lai from the village. I really like him. Although old Master Lai has 2 granddaughters, but the old man did not welcome them. At that time, people had a tendency to prefer boys over girls. The old man is no exception. This old man is always waiting for the stars and the moon. I hope to hold my great-grandson. It seems we really can't wait any longer. Just cherish your own rarity. All hopes are pinned on Lai Erwa. The 2 families also have a good relationship. Sometimes we just walk around without anything to do. Every time the old man saw Erwa, it's as if they've seen their own grandchildren. Usually, no matter what, one can never get enough kisses. Liu Fang, the mother of the 2 children, also didn't hold back. Put Erwa at the old man's house. Let him help take care of it. The little guy also lost his grandfather early. Moreover, the old man truly cared for him. As time goes by, the relationship between these 2 grandchildren became very deep. The old man's daughters-in-law are all filled with jealousy. It wasn't long before strange things started happening. It was around September of 2003. Erwa's mom picks him up from school. On the way home, I ran into the old man. The old man saw Erwa from a distance. Then she called out without opening her eyes and smiled. Interestingly, Erwa did not behave as usual, pounced into old Lai's embrace, but hid behind Liu Fang. Erwa's actions made Liu Fang feel very strange. I don't know why Erwa acted that way. Old Lai is feeling a bit down. But still, I moved closer to Erwa. I want to hold Erwa over. Erwa squeezed back a little behind Liu Fang. He kept saying he was scared. Both Liu Fang and old Lai were completely puzzled. I don't understand what happened. Liu Fang felt a bit embarrassed. I was also worried about hurting old Lai's feelings and kept explaining to him. Old Lai said he didn't care, but the complexion is still somewhat unwell. Once he walked far away. Liu Fang hurriedly asked him what was going on. Why treat Grandpa Lai that way? Erwa looked very aggrieved. He said he wasn't afraid of Grandpa Lai, but were afraid of the 2 people following Grandpa Lai. Liu Fang glanced back at the distant figure of old Lai. I didn't see anyone following behind, but Erwa said she saw 2 strangely dressed people following behind Grandpa. Liu Fang found it strange. I didn't take it to heart. But the very next day something happened. Old Lai has died. What's happening in our village? Everyone will go to help. Urwa was very sad to hear that Grandpa Lai had died. I want to go with my parents to see Grandpa Lai one last time. A family of 3 walked out with heavy hearts. Urwa's grandmother is not in good health. Just stay at home and don't go help. Just before leaving, I called out to Liu Fang. They said Urwa was still young, easily scared. It is only right to take her to see old Lai one last time. But on the way back, you must call Urwa's name 3 times. Liu Fang agreed on the surface. As soon as she stepped out, she told Urwa's father, "My mom is always so mysterious." Didn't take it to heart. Soon, the family of 3 arrived at old Lai's house. Urwa was brought into the main room. Old Lai is lying on the kang. A white cloth covered his face. Not yet through customs. Urwa held back tears. Walked up to old Lai, thinking of the kindness Grandpa Lai showed me in the past. Urwa also didn't feel scared. Tears kept streaming down. Urwa is feeling sad. Suddenly I saw old Lai stretch out his hand, caught his hand. At this moment, the white cloth covering old Lai's face, as if blown up by the wind. Old Lai slowly opened his murky eyes. Looking at Urwa, I can't bear to part with him. I want to take him away. This sudden change. Urwa screamed in fright and retreated. The couple quickly supported their son. Asked him what exactly happened. Urwa said that Grandpa Lai has woken up, still holding onto his hand tightly. But the couple has been right here all along. There is nothing unusual at all. But the couple was so frightened to see their son like that. Thought it was the first time seeing the 4 people carrying it. Hastily sent him back home. But that very night, Urwa is acting strange. Not only is the spirit sluggish, also developed a high fever. This scared the couple. They discussed sending Urwa to the hospital. At that moment, Urwa's grandmother has arrived. Urwa is not sick. She asked Liu Fang when she came back from old Lai's house, "Is there a name called Urwa?" Liu Fang then remembered her mother-in-law's words before leaving the house. Because Urwa was scared, she forgot as soon as she came back. In fact, she didn't believe her mother-in-law at all, not taken to heart at all. Urwa's grandmother said Urwa was scared out of his wits. Let Urwa's parents see her eye sockets. As expected, Urwa's eyes were bruised. Liu Fang believed her mother-in-law this time as well. I hurriedly asked my mother-in-law what to do in this situation. Urwa's grandmother asked Liu Fang to go to the yard, bring back a bowl of well water, find another needle from Aunt Fang. Liu Fang didn't dare to delay and moved quickly. I brought a bowl of water, handed the needle back to the mother-in-law. Urwa's grandmother put the needle in the water. She said if the needle sinks to the bottom of the bowl, this means that Urwa hasn't lost his soul. Can we take him to the hospital? If a needle floats on the surface of the water, that's losing one's soul. Taking them to the hospital won't help. After Urwa's grandmother put the needle into the water, the needle actually floated on the water's surface. Liu Fang was instantly dumbfounded. I admire the old lady too. Urwa's grandmother had a plan in mind. Let Liu Fang take off Urwa's daytime shoes, pressing down on the pillow. Then take a cooking spoon. Get another pair of chopsticks for Urwa to eat with. Go to the yard and call for Urwa's soul. Urwa's mother followed what her mother-in-law said. First, he opened the courtyard gate. Then tapped the bottom of the spoon with the chopsticks. With every knock, he calls out the name Urwa. Let her go home. You have to call out 9 times. Also, open all the doors from the yard to Urwa's sleeping room. This way, Urwa's lost soul can be retrieved. It's strange that after Urwa's mother finished all of this, after a short while, Urwa's fever subsided. Urwa said she had been dreaming all along. In the dream, she is with Grandpa Lai. Only Grandpa Lai looks a bit scary. She didn't dare to play with him. I wanted to leave, but Grandpa Lai held me back. She forcefully broke free from Grandpa Lai's hand. But that place was surrounded by complete darkness. No matter how she ran, she couldn't escape. Later, She heard her mother calling her name. She desperately ran towards the direction of the sound. She saw her mother calling her. Then she woke up. Liu Fang felt a shiver run down her spine. Looking at the safe and sound Erwa, she also had to start reevaluating this issue. Gained a bit more respect for my mother-in-law. Perhaps there are some things in this world it is indeed difficult to explain clearly. Thinking back on this matter today still makes me shiver. My whole body was covered in goosebumps. That was 3 years ago with my 18th ex-girlfriend, when in Tianjin, the events happening next to the rental house. At that time, there wasn't much money, so I rented the top floor. Actually, there are only 2 households in total. The room next door is empty. No one lives here. Not long after, strange things started happening. That night, we returned home as usual. Suddenly, the door to the next room opened. A person comes out. That person is probably in their 50s. It seems like they came out to take out the trash. Seeing me, they were also taken aback. It's a bit strange to say. This person is still wearing sunglasses in the quiet room. I didn't think much about it either. I thought this must be the new neighbors. He politely greeted, but that person didn't pay any attention to me. He stared at me for a long time without speaking, moved the trash to the door, just opened the door and entered the room. In the following days, I didn't encounter that person again. It was probably one evening 4 or 5 days later. I was blowing in the wind by the window as usual. Glanced casually at the neighbor. This does look a bit strange. I only saw the windowsill of the neighbor's house, hanging a somewhat little cloth, hanging outside the window with a red thread, even though there's nothing special. But it looks very uncomfortable. Isn't this a hanging posture? What kind of person is so bored? I have a vague feeling that something bad is about to happen. I turned around and went into the house. At that time, I didn't think much of it. It might have been done by some mischievous child. But 2 more days passed. I only just realized how terrifying that thing really is. That day was the same. I ran to the balcony again to feel the breeze. Because of what happened before, I couldn't help but sneak another glance at the windowsill next door. But upon closer inspection, I was instantly frightened. The puppet is still there at this moment. Strangely enough, the puppet's head was also dripped with red liquid. It looks just like blood. This made the puppet seem even more eerie. I suddenly felt a bit uneasy. I was lost in my thoughts. I suddenly found that the puppet had actually started to move. I couldn't help but shiver. Upon closer inspection, it turned out someone had pulled him up through the window. Then a large hand reached out, just caught that puppet. That person is the strange man in sunglasses I saw a few days ago. See that person appear. I hurriedly hid to the side. I don't know if that person saw me or not. Just as I was lost in thought, you called out to me again. Then I told my girlfriend about this. I didn't mean to scare her, but it also made her pay attention. Stay away from that strange neighbor. I didn't expect that you really didn't know at all. A person moved in next door. It seems this person is indeed quite mysterious. Finished eating. It looks like someone is being a scoundrel, cursing others. So I put down the work in my hands, ran to the balcony again. But I looked around carefully. There was nothing unusual found. Could it be that I'm overthinking it? I suddenly realized something. If he is targeting someone, the one who might be cursed should be on the other side. I instinctively looked across. Upon closer inspection, something indeed went wrong. Just across from our building, on the upper floor, in the room directly opposite, a person committed suicide by hanging. It looks like they are in a hurry, but not moving forward. I was so scared that I immediately crouched down. Is this really a curse? It also caused someone's death. I took a long time to catch my breath. It has just begun to calm down a little. Perhaps I saw it wrong just now, but when I quietly peeked out again, a buzzing sound suddenly filled my head. that Wu Jai is really hanging a dead person. I nervously took out my phone, busy dialing the emergency number. My unusual behavior caught my girlfriend's attention, but facing her inquiry, I thought about it and decided it's better not to tell her. In this stone corridor, a series of footsteps echoed. Only the two households on the top floor are not us. Isn't that the person? Sure enough, I saw that guy wearing sunglasses. Rushed down the stairs. Since then, she never came back. I haven't seen her again either. As for whether she was eventually caught, I haven't heard about it either. If the person on the other side really died because of her, that was really terrifying. The next door has become empty again. After a while, the neighboring house was rented by a young couple. The new neighbors are very friendly, and we have become quite close. But I still often think of the person who hanged themselves and the one who didn't endure, and the terrifying neighbor from before. Do you know what a hostage is? The so-called hostage. It is recorded to be a cruel punishment invented during the Han Dynasty. It cut off the hands and feet of the lady, soaked in a vat of wine. This kind of torture. Today, this matter is related to that. The story takes place in the early 2000s. It was the busy farming season. That early morning, a liquor truck has just rolled into our village. I heard it was midnight yesterday. A cry of despair came from Lao Zhang's house. Then something happened. It was old Zhang who was carried out. It seems quite serious. What disease do you think it is? The wine jug cart quickly took away old Zhang. But the various rumors in the village never ceased. Old Zhang carried back a big jar from the field yesterday. It is probably related to that. Until evening time. His wife is back. Everyone finally understands what is going on. As expected. This matter is indeed related to the big jar that the villagers mentioned. It turned out that yesterday morning, Lao Zhang plans to cultivate a piece of wasteland to grow corn. That piece of land is a patch of weeds by the river, never cultivated grain. Reclaiming the land is quite labor-intensive. He swung the hoe down. Suddenly, a muffled bang echoed from underground. That feeling is unlike being carved into stone. But there is definitely something hard. He is afraid of damaging the hoe. Just carefully lie on the ground, shoveling bit by bit. Slowly, a large black peach crown emerged from the underground. He was suddenly taken aback. I also feel a bit of anticipation. What is buried in this field, if it's some kind of antique? Didn't you just send it? Don't be fooled by Lao Zhang's daily focus on work. But he often watches those health programs. I definitely feel like I've unearthed some kind of antique. Thinking of this, Lao Zhang was full of energy. Dub again, finally seeing the true form of this thing. This further confirmed his suspicions. There is some dirt in this peach crown. Take a look around. I found some white fragments in the soil. I don't know what it is. At this moment, his heart was pounding wildly. Seeing that no one was around, he slung the peach crown over his shoulder, ran home in a hurry. After returning home, he carefully washed the big peaches, and I was afraid someone would steal it. At night, the jar was placed in the living room. With such a precious treasure, Lao Zhang is so excited that he can't sleep at all. It took several reminders from my wife before I finally got onto the bed. By the late night, old Zhang was dreaming of getting rich by selling treasures. A foul smell wafted into the room from somewhere. That stench is even more overwhelming than old Zhang's smelly socks. He was forcefully awakened. He pushed his sleeping wife beside him while covering his nose. But my wife is sleeping too soundly. I pushed it a few times, but it didn't respond at all. At that moment, suddenly, I heard a strange noise. It sounded like someone was breathing heavily. It felt like air was leaking out. I can't hear it clearly. Listen more carefully. It sounds like it's coming from the living room. Old Zhang has woken up for quite a while. Is there someone in the living room? My precious little one is still in the living room. Quickly yanked open the bedroom door. Ran out. Lao Zhang paused his steps. In this dimly lit living room, it seems to be permeated by a light mist. A strong stench fills the mist. It's even stronger than the scent in the bedroom. I haven't even taken a few breaths. I was so overwhelmed that I felt dizzy. My mind felt a bit hazy. But this group of people like this, he quickly pinched his nose. Go check on your precious jar. Upon closer inspection, the mist around the jar is thicker. Faintly, I saw a black spherical object protruding from the top of the jar. That gas, it seems to be coming from inside the jar. Could it be that someone wants to steal the jar? Show yourself. He hid behind the jar. Come out. Lao Zhang shouted. One side turned on the flashlight. Shine towards that jar. But when you get closer and take a look, he suddenly felt as if he had been electrocuted. My whole body trembled uncontrollably. There was actually a human head in that jar. That kind of feels like breathing. A sound like a moan. It was he who sent it out. It seems to be because of being covered by the flashlight. The person with loose hair. It also began to tremble. He stiffly lifted his head to look at old Zhang. That was a woman's head. The entire face was illuminated by the flashlight. Looks extremely pale. Not a trace of color. And it's not even a living person. Lao Zhang had never seen such a terrifying scene. So scared that my legs went weak. Fell to the ground just like that. The whole person turned into a puddle of mud. But I saw that person's head shaking slightly, wriggling on one side, whispered 3 barely audible words. Help me. This was his terrifying realization. There is no tongue in his mouth at all. The blood is blurry. I don't know where the sound is coming from. Piercing and harsh. In this extreme state of terror, old Zhang only felt a darkness before his eyes. Fainted. Until this morning, his wife woke up. Only then did I realize he was lying in the living room. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wake them up. Only then did they call for an ambulance. After being sent to the hospital, it was just due to excessive fright. It's nothing serious. But this spread quickly. That afternoon, several cars arrived in the village again. What is the Artifact Bureau? Take away that big peach jar. It is said that after the appraisal, that big peach jar is ancient. Execution of the crying pedestrian's uses. Lao Zhang's treasure is gone, but the parking space in the house just won't clear. I heard that later they still hired someone to do the house, gradually fading away. As for the origins of this jar, I don't know. After all, such things did happen a long time ago. I don't know if you have a saying like that over there. If you plant more and compare more when you're young, the family will find a way to divert attention. Some will recognize a godfather. Some will arrange child betrothals. Some will look for a substitute, preventing disaster for oneself. One evening, a commotion arose in the village, the sound of a blaring horn. It turns out that the old man from the Zhao family in the village has passed away. I am currently writing. At that time, funerals were quite elaborate. Blowing and lighting again. All direct relatives of the Zhao family. They are all part of Song Kang's team. I was sitting at the door at that time. Wait to hear Grandpa tell me a story. Just looking at the crowd of Song Kang. Walked past Grandpa's house. Walking toward the cemetery on the western hill. The old man saw the much younger Lao Zhao, but took a step ahead. Could not help but let out a sigh. But then I thought again. Over 80. It's enough to break even. Also very open-minded. Doesn't take life and death too seriously. I grew up by my grandfather's side since I was little. The feelings for Grandpa run deep. When Grandpa brought up the topic of life and death, I just get inexplicably nervous. At that time, I had no concept of such things. Just wanting to be loved by my grandfather. Always accompany oneself. Then Grandpa told me a story. Grandpa said that his life was exchanged for Zaire Jai's, and this little Jai who gave him a new life. Surprisingly, it's not a person. This incident happened when Grandfather was 10 years old. One day his father took him. I went to a friend's house in the neighboring village. Grandpa followed father into the house and then realized. It turns out that family just lost a daughter. The age seems to be about the same as that of grandfather back then. Listening to my father's conversation with that man, Grandpa seems to understand a bit. If this girl doesn't die, she should be the future daughter-in-law. At that time, most marriages were arranged. Arranging childhood betrothals is still very common. Grandpa only found out at that time. My parents had originally arranged a childhood betrothal for me. Knowing this, Grandpa couldn't help but. The girl's body lying flat on the kang. I glanced at it twice more. I even feel a bit anxious deep down. The girl died from illness. The body didn't suffer any injuries. Looks like they are asleep. Her face was extremely pale. The girl is quite delicate in appearance. Although dead, it's still evident that being alive is definitely beautiful. At that time, Grandpa still couldn't comprehend the fear of death. There are not many sad thoughts. Father exchanged a few pleasantries with that family. Just took Grandpa out. But they might have known. That girl almost became my daughter-in-law. The girl's image was still etched in his grandfather's mind. But Grandpa didn't expect it. That night, something strange happened. After Grandpa returned home that night, as usual, went to bed early. But in the middle of the night, Grandpa suddenly had a strange dream. Grandpa dreamed of the girl who passed away and whom he saw today. At this moment, standing by his bed. The girl said that after she died, she went to Yin Jin. But there was only her there. She felt very lonely and scared. At that time, girls were subjected to traditional education and constraints. Feudal thinking is very serious. That girl is 2 years older than Grandpa. It seems they are determined to be with Grandpa. So I was determined to take Grandpa along. I originally thought she was a ghost. Grandpa is still a bit scared. But that girl started to cry. Very sad. Grandpa saw the girl's frightened and helpless expression. Thus, a sense of compassion arose. This thought stirred. Grandpa suddenly felt himself sit up from the bed. The body feels light as a feather. It feels like I can't fly. Grandpa is awake. The girl stepped forward and took her grandfather's hand. Walking in one direction, Grandpa unconsciously followed her, unconsciously turned back to take another look. That was when Grandpa realized. My body is still comfortably sleeping on the kang. But Grandpa said, in my dream, I seemed a bit confused, knowing nothing at all. Just like ink. Follow that girl forward. And remember, where did the dream version of myself go next? What happened again? Grandpa doesn't know. When he opened his eyes again, I found my parents anxiously standing in front of me, calling out their own name. At that moment, he finally understood. I've been lying in bed unconscious for 2 days. My parents just hired someone to summon spirits. Only just woke up. Besides my own parents at home, there is also the blind man behind the village. It seems that the blind man has figured everything out. Say if we don't find a way, this girl will come back again. It will be a big problem then. And his suggestion, just making a substitute for Grandpa. The next thing that happened, Grandpa didn't, participated. I heard about it later from my parents, under the guidance of the blind elder. According to Grandpa's height and appearance, someone made a wooden puppet. Once again, the wooden figure got covered in Grandpa's hair, wearing Grandpa's clothes. Grandpa's blood was smeared a bit. Later, the elder went to plead with the girl's family, spoke about Grandpa's condition, asked them to open the girl's coffin. Take that little wooden man and the girl's body were placed side by side. It is said that this is how the wooden man Zio Jai is made. Replaced Grandpa to accompany that girl, became close friends with him. A new stone tablet was erected for the girl. The names of the girl and her grandfather were inscribed on the stone tablet, turned into a joint burial tree. Since then, Grandpa really started to get better gradually. has turned back into that joyful, hopping child. The parents took Grandpa to the blind man's house again, threw away a clay statue of a deity to become a dry mother. He changed his name to Da Shun. From then on, Grandpa no longer called Zio Jai. From that day on, the girl never appeared again. Grandpa is now over 80 years old. There has always been nothing wrong with my body. In Grandpa's view, that's just my own stand-in, Zio Jai. Locked all disasters for myself. A couple seeks excitement. Actually use the other person's blood as ink. Getting couple tattoos on the arm. I didn't want anything to happen so soon. This matter was told to me by my ex-girlfriend, Zio Lai. When Zio Lai was in college, I met a very strange roommate. Zio Lai is actually quite cheerful. It wasn't long before I became good friends with the others in the dorm. But there was one person who never quite managed. She is Zio Mai. Today's story's heroine sleeps in the lower bunk of Zio Lai's bed. Zio Mai doesn't know what's going on, sitting there all day, listless and in a daze. Even if someone helped her, just drifting through a life of idleness. The attitude was very indifferent. Several girls lived together for over 10 days. Zio Mai has always been in this state. No one really understands her. It's hard to say anything. I only thought she had social anxiety disorder, or perhaps more aloof. Gradually, I stopped paying attention to her. I never expected this at all. It wasn't long before something went wrong. That night, Zio Lai stayed up late playing on her phone. Just as I closed my eyes, I heard my brother's laughter. A sound came from under the bed. Zio Lai felt puzzled. He turned his head and looked down over the edge of the bed. But upon looking at this, he was scared awake for most of the night. Zio Mai was feeling her way in the dark, sitting by the table doing makeup in the dead of night. While drawing, older brother was laughing strangely. Zio Lai was very frightened. The tone is a bit unhappy. Zio Mai, why are you doing so late at night? Zio Mai stiffly lifted her head to look at her. Zio Lai glanced outside at the moonlight. Goodness gracious! That face looked like it had been covered in several pounds of flour. Terrifyingly white, but her lips were painted a deep red. Still looking at her with a strange smile. That way, just like the female ghost in a horror movie. Doing this in the middle of the night. She couldn't help but let out a scream. As soon as she called out, woke up the other roommates as well. One by one, they groggily got up to ask about the situation. Zio Lai has explained the whole story. Zio Mai remain silent as well. Just ignore them. A person lay down on the bed. The quilt was pulled, so I lay down inside. The girls who were involved felt a bit awkward. Zio Lai was indeed frightened by this strange roommate. Otherwise, it wouldn't be remembered for so long. She didn't dare to read it again. Quickly lie back in bed and turn off your phone. Just continued to sleep. But this matter is not over. Zio Lai had just fallen asleep not long ago. Then something happened. It was probably just past midnight. Suddenly, a sound clicked from the window. It seems someone opened the window. Zio Lai was scared tonight. I can wake up any time. The sound woke her up once again. At this moment, Zio Lai suddenly felt, in the darkness it seemed to hear. Someone climbed up to the windowsill. Zio Lai couldn't help but feel curious and got up to take a look. I never expected that. This time I saw actually two people, and one of them was Zio Mai. At that moment, she lifted one leg onto the window, grabbing the window as if trying to climb out. But it's hard to see clearly. Looking at the silhouette, it resembles a boy. Zheng is helping Zio Mai climb out. Watched for a while. Zio Lai suddenly realized, this is the 5th floor. This step forward, the consequences are unimaginable. Zio Lai hurriedly called out. Zio Lai and another figure. Everyone turned to look at her. Zio Mai still had her heavy makeup on. A strange smile still hung on his face. And that boy is very strange. It doesn't look like a physical entity. Xiaolai felt a faint sense of unease in her heart. The boy's face was as if shrouded in a layer of mist. Very vague, but she could see it anyway. She showed him an angry expression. Xiaolai didn't dare to think too much about it. Drag it out a little longer. It seems that Xiao Mei is about to jump down. Quickly shouted to wake up the roommate. However, this kick. Xiao Mei rolled her eyes. It is gradually returning to normal. Meanwhile, the ghostly figure gradually faded in place. The roommate watched this scene. Hastily ran to the balcony. Xiao Mei was pulled down. Xiao Mei was firmly pinned down on the bed by several girls. It seems I finally understand what's going on. She burst into tears. A few people comforted for quite a while. Xiao Mei finally spoke up, her voice trembling. She said her ex-boyfriend came to find her. I want to take her away. He spoke and revealed the tattoo on his arm to them. After she said that, at this moment, the few of them noticed. Xiao Mei has several tattoos on her arm, but at this moment, it felt like an allergy. It bulged out, red and thick. It turns out I was in high school in the county town back home. Xiao Mei is dating a boyfriend. He is a little troublemaker in school. His name is Lai Hao. At that time, I was young and ignorant. Two people for the sake of romance. I got a couple's tattoo at the tattoo shop. What's even more speechless is, both of their tattoos are in the tattoo ink, mixed each other's blood. It's a matter of you having me in you. The meaning of you are within me. Originally, this was just a small episode for young lovers. It's not a big deal. Just a few days before the school started, Lai Hao and a few friends were riding motorcycles. The thugs in that small town, everyone knows. Only pursuing speed and excitement, not considering the consequences at all. It is said that while passing through an intersection, Lai Hao is still showing off his skills. Lower the front of the car. You can't see any traffic lights here. But at that moment, a large truck approached from the side. In this situation, both sides couldn't stop the car, bumped right into it. The car accident was horrific. Lai Hao died on the spot. Xiao Mei felt sad for a while, arrived at this university. But during this time, she dreams almost every night of Lai Hao calling her, and each time feels more real than the last. The tattoo on that arm is getting redder and redder, getting more complicated. He wanted to take her away that night. Hearing this, a few people couldn't help but exchange glances. They coincidentally went to see it. Her swollen red tattoo. Next, a few people stayed up all night watching over Xiao Mei. The next morning, I contacted her family. Hurry and take her home. Xiao Mei returned to class after a year of studying. However, by that time, my ex-girlfriend was already in her sophomore year. I don't usually interact with her much. Seen you from afar a few times. It seems quite normal. It seems that someone was invited to take a look at the house. Many driving friends can relate to this. Encounters with small animals while driving happen from time to time. What if I accidentally crushed them? Then you need to be careful. This incident is my second uncle's personal experience. Uncle is a long-haul truck driver. I mentioned before. He always encounters strange and bizarre things. This happened in the 1990s. His company received an order. A batch of goods needs to be delivered to a located hundreds of miles away. Don't underestimate it. It's just a few hundred miles. But those are all mountain roads. The mountain road is steep and in poor condition. We have to drive for over 10 hours. Uncle brought his apprentice to take turns driving. It's fine during the day, but by nightfall, the young apprentice driving at night for the first time. I guess they are also a bit scared, talking non-stop. It's actually not surprising. The night in the mountains is terrifyingly quiet. The only sound that can be heard is the sound of cars driving. There are no streetlights on the winding mountain road either, the road to Dashan village. There are rarely any cars passing by. At night, we drove a few kilometers further. Can't see a single car. It's a lie to say that second uncle isn't scared at all. He has also been through this before. When driving to a buffer zone, the disciple said he needed to take care of something. Second uncle also felt a bit tired after driving for half a day. Decided to go out and get some exercise. The apprentice ran away to urinate. Uncle leaned against the car door, smoking a cigarette. But at that moment, the disciple suddenly shouted, "It seems like I saw something terrifying." Uncle hurried over. I looked in the direction he was pointing. It's too dark. I can't see anything clearly, thanks to having a flashlight on my waist. Just moved forward, shining the light ahead. Only the dark road is visible. There are two green dots. Minglang Chang. What animal's eyes does it look like? But what animal can stand still without moving? Always looking at the two people. Not afraid and not running away. At this moment, Uncle also felt a bit uneasy. But I can't show it in front of my disciple. The two people bumped into each other. Walked forward for over 10 meters. Only upon closer inspection did I realize. It was a black cat. Jeng squats in the middle of the road. The green light point just now. It is the two eyes of the black cat. Uncle just let out a sigh of relief. Take a closer look. Then I noticed something was off. It turns out that under the black cat's feet, there is another little black cat. But they are already dead. Blood flowed all over the ground. The little black cat's body was flattened severely. No need to ask. It was crushed by passing vehicles. Blood was still flowing from their mouth. It must have just died recently, although the nights in the mountains have turned quite chilly. On Uncle forehead, yet it was still covered with fine beads of sweat. There is still a lingering fear in my heart. Fortunately, I decided to take a break just now. Otherwise, we definitely won't be able to stop the car. Crush that black cat too. Second uncle is soft-hearted. Slowly approached the black cat. It seems that Uncle and the others have no ill intentions. The black cat showed no reaction. Uncle stared into the eyes of the big black cat. He cleaned up the little black cat's body. The black cat kept watching Uncle movements. There was no reaction. Second uncle can tell. The big black cat did not oppose him doing this. Two people took a rag, wrapped up the little black cat's body. Then to the hillside by the roadside. I found a place to bury it. And that big black cat just kept watching them until they leave. When Uncle and his apprentice turned to leave, he even turned back to take a look. The black cat sat quietly in front of the child's grave. The eyes continued to watch them. Their expression resembled that of a deeply saddened person. The car restarted. The two faces of the corpse appeared grim. Everyone feels that the recent events are wrapped in strangeness. It's okay. There were no other incidents along the way. In the morning, the truck arrived at the Mayo village. He always felt uncomfortable in his heart. I happened to know a famous Mayo house in a village. Just asked a question. Then the old lady told him, cats are said to be spiritual beings in legends. The black cat symbolizes the bridge between the human world and the underworld. Killing a black cat will bring retribution. Second uncle didn't think much of it either. Seeing that it was getting late, I wanted to go back. It's strange to say. No matter who the corpse map belongs to in the next life, the car won't start. Cannot find any issues. No way. They can only stay in the village for one night. Prepare to find someone to fix it tomorrow. But the next morning was even stranger. The mechanic is about to arrive. Uncle habitually struck a match. I didn't expect this car to start so quickly. There is not a single problem. This is really strange. He exchanged a glance with his apprentice. Everyone is a bit confused. But the car is finally fixed. Then I can go home. There were a few more cars during the day. Two people followed the winding mountain road, heading out towards the mountains. Because it rained in the mountains, the road became very slippery. Moreover, strange events have been happening one after another these past 2 days. Uncle drove very carefully. When we were about to leave the Pansion Road, I discovered a crowd gathered by the roadside ahead. I don't know what I'm looking at, because the road is blocked. The two people stopped the car, gathering money to see what's going on. Only then did I realize a small truck was being towed onto a flatbed. The front of the small truck is completely flattened. There are still some bloodstains by the shattered car window. I found out by asking the person next to me. The small truck was on its way back yesterday, encountering a landslide, hit directly by the falling boulder. Both drivers were killed in the crash. At that moment, Urshu's heart sank. At that moment, the disciple nudged him, the insurance beam pointing at the front of the van. Upon seeing this, Uncle Er's head also buzzed for a moment. Cold sweat broke out on my back as well. There is a bloodstain on the insurance beam of the small truck. There was a tuft of black fur stuck to the blood-stained letter. Isn't this tuft of fur from the black cat? He suddenly understood what was going on. From that day on, Uncle drove very carefully with the little animals, because he believes, once there was a black cat in the darkness. Let them escape disaster. Are there any friends in Gwangju? I wonder if you've heard of it. The sensational Chengju building incident. However, the truth of the event remains unknown. The specifics are also widely debated. Just treat it as a story to enjoy. This story takes place in the last century, Gwangju's Henan district in the 1980s. In the night of October 1985, residents by the Sheju Bridge in Henan had gone to bed early, and 31-year-old teacher Wu, still grading assignments late into the night. Actually, teacher Wu usually goes to bed early because school is about to start, although there are many things. Suddenly, it was late into the night. He appeared particularly drowsy, took a sip of strong tea to refresh. The drowsiness that I forced myself to endure. I want to finish before 12, finish all the work. But his eyelids felt heavy. Soon, the double eyelids started to fight. My head felt heavy, and I couldn't help but doze off. Fell asleep. But he had just dozed off. A strange sound came from outside the window. Teacher Wu was already able to sleep well. I was awakened by a strange sound. This sound seems like the sonar sound. Why is someone still doing this in the middle of the night? Isn't this disturbing the peace? This inevitably makes him feel a bit foolish. But he didn't think much about it either. I thought it was some old man nearby practicing the suona. He mumbled something under his breath and continued working. The voice of Kesuona kept coming through. It seems to be getting closer and closer. Amidst it all, there were faintly mixed sounds of chaotic footsteps. Whether it's the sound of footsteps or the sound of a sonar, in this deep night, everything feels particularly clear. It sounds incredibly annoying. Teacher Wu took a sip of water. Feeling frustrated, she got up and walked towards the window. However, when he stood by the window and looked outside, suddenly I was frozen in place. I only see the street outside the window. Unknowingly, the mist has filled the air. A group of silhouettes is coming through the mist with great destiny. It sounds like footsteps and the sound of sonar. It was they who sent it out. In the mist, something can be faintly seen. Walking at the front are two people in red clothes playing the suona. But the feeling these two people give off, yet there was not a trace of joy. Instead, it was quite eerie, whether it's playing the saxophone or walking. All were quite dull. As the team gradually approached, the scenes in the mist gradually became clearer. Teacher Wu also saw the people behind, dressed in red as well, carrying a large red sedan chair. It was like a wedding procession. That's quite strange. Why are there still people welcoming the bride at night? Seeing this, he had a puzzled expression. At the same time, these people sparked his intense curiosity. Then he leaned against the window and continued to look outside. Very soon, the team slowly walked to the street outside his window. At this moment, Teacher Wu also recognized the faces of these people. This is quite something to behold. Teacher Wu instantly became terrified and started to tremble. Looking around, only saw this wedding procession. Where are the living people? In the wedding procession, no matter if it's the Suona player, still carrying the sedan chair, everyone has no pupils, pale-faced, painted with blood-red blush, smiling strangely at the corners of the mouth, and that large red sedan chair being carried. It was completely empty inside. Seeing this scene, Teacher Wu couldn't help but let out a gasp. After realizing, he quickly covered his mouth and nose and hid beside the window. But it's still too late. This scream immediately caught the attention of the wedding procession. The sound of the Suona abruptly stopped. Everyone stopped in their tracks, turned around stiffly. A strange smile still hung on his face. I looked over at Teacher Wu's window. Teacher Wu was instantly frightened, his face pale and cold sweat pouring down. Leaning against the wall, I still couldn't help but close my eyes and look out the window. I don't want the wedding procession outside to keep staring over here. He quickly withdrew his gaze, holding my breath tightly against the wall. Fortunately, it didn't take long. The sound of the Suona began to play again. Teacher Wu mustered up his courage, quietly glanced sideways out the window. I found that the wedding procession had already passed by. At this moment, he finally dared to let out a long sigh of relief. Next, please. The wedding procession unexpectedly stopped in front of a burned loft diagonally across from his home. The wedding procession gradually faded into the mist, ultimately disappeared completely. Teacher Wu looked at the burnt building diagonally across. Suddenly, it seemed like I remembered something. The whole person tensed up again. The incident that happened 7 days ago at the restaurant across the street. A sensation that shook the entire world of Gwangju. Although this restaurant was burned down by fire, but before that, it was a famous old brand in Gwangju. The tavern has become a pigsty. There are 3 floors left in total. 7 days ago, the 3rd floor of this restaurant was booked for a wedding by a garment factory. Both sides have many friends and relatives. On the day of the wedding banquet, the 3rd floor of the restaurant was filled with guests. The groom and bride clasped their hands on stage. The guests below were joyfully tasting the dishes at the wedding banquet. I don't want to wait long. This place caught fire. By the time everyone discovers it, the fire at the stairway has already spread. The red flames flickered outside the window. Look at that fire, it's quite big. Suddenly, the scene descended into chaos. On the street outside the tavern, the crowd is growing larger. The fire at the restaurant grew larger and larger. Some people are pouring water upwards with buckets. But the barrels of water were of no use to the burning restaurant. It can be said that it's like a drop in the bucket, because the fire was too intense. Many people are trapped in the fire. Occasionally, guests burst out. He was burned all over by the raging fire. It was truly devastating. Very quickly, the entire restaurant was engulfed in flames. Fire trucks rushed to the scene. When the great fire was finally extinguished, the entire restaurant was reduced to ruins. This matter quickly spread. It once caused a sensation throughout Gwangju. After the investigation, it was discovered. The fire broke out due to the generator catching fire inexplicably. Thinking of this, Teacher Wu is hiding under the covers, trembling all over uncontrollably. Suddenly, a sound echoed. Teacher Wu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. On the street outside the window, the wedding procession started to make its way back. This time, the sedan chair being carried behind is no longer empty, but sat on a bride. The wedding procession walked further along the street, under the red veil of the green gauze. It is also a pale ghost face. The next day, this matter spread quickly. It's not that Teacher Wu has a big mouth, but because many people were there last night. I saw that strange wedding procession. I believe many people have seen such scenes. On the bustling streets of the city, and in crowded places, there will always be some tattered people standing by the roadside. There is a plate or a bowl in front of me. You are not wrong in your thoughts. It's those beggars. These people will intentionally expose their injured or disabled areas, exposed, to garner people's sympathy. Every time I see a person like this, as long as I have change on me, I give them 3 or 2 pieces each. Although many people told me, many of those people are just pretending, but I will still give it. It's not that I'm lacking, but I always feel that, even if one of them truly needs help, every little help counts. But most of the time, it really is a misjudgment, because I often argue with my girlfriend. But next time we meet, I will still give it. The reason is that something happened to me when I was a child. I will always hold deep respect for these people in my life. The story takes place in the 1990s. I was around 7 or 8 years old, still living in the rural hometown. Because my parents are running a small business in the city, there's simply no time to take care of it. So my childhood was spent at my grandma's house. At that time, I was still at home. At that time, I was still living at home. That summer vacation, I don't know what happened. I have many small flesh bumps on my arm, an unexpected itch. Grandma thinks it's nothing serious. Just took me to the clinic in the village for a checkup. At that time, both the doctor and my grandmother thought I had grown a monkey. That is also known as flat oil, a common skin disease. But I don't think so. I have seen that some friends also have long ones, different from mine. At least they don't itch. The doctor has diagnosed me. Grandma searched for countless remedies to treat my monkey disease, but it doesn't work at all. At first, I only felt an itch on the back of my hand. Later, it spread to the arm and grew a lot. Later, I always felt that the biggest one on the back of my hand. It feels like my own black hole. I could almost feel it clearly. There is a little moving thing under that meat lump, wriggling back and forth inside. I was really feeling unwell that day. Arguing with Grandma in the yard, our faces flushed. Suddenly, a knock sounded at the front door. Grandma walked over and opened the yard gate to take a look. I found an old beggar standing at the door. The old beggar looked very haggard, and their eyes were all white. It turns out he cannot see. I want to finish fetching water to drink. Grandma is a very kind-hearted person. As soon as I saw the old man's pitiful appearance, just let him into the yard. The old man was very polite. He didn't dare to go inside the house for fear that Grandma would find him too dirty. Sat down on the ground behind the courtyard gate. I was also captivated by the old beggar's eyes. The white of the eyes scared me. I never dared to speak up. I thought he shouldn't be able to see me. But I was wrong. The old man might feel particularly sensitive. You actually found me, then smiled in my direction, clearly trying very hard to appear friendly. But I still find it quite scary. Still didn't dare to speak. Just stared at him blankly. Grandma came out of the house again. I poured a big bowl of hot water for the elderly. Afraid it wouldn't be enough, she placed the thermos by his feet. In our area, we say we drink after finishing with the water. Everyone understands. Of course, it's not just about drinking water. So Grandma prepared a big steamed bun for the old man, and some leftovers from lunch. The old man didn't hold back either. I guess I'm really starving. Groping for the large steamed bun, he began to chop it up. After gobbling down everything in sight, 2 plates of leftover food and a large steamed bun, he just swallowed it. I drank 2 big bowls of hot water again. Only then did he put down the bowl, gasping for breath. It seems this old man, I really haven't eaten for several meals. This meal has made the person look much better. It's much better than before. After eating and drinking to satisfaction, the old beggar had no intention of leaving immediately. After taking a break, he suddenly said he must repay a favor. Grandma laughed as soon as she heard it. An old beggar without a single cent. What is there to be grateful for? But the old beggar's tone was very firm.